can you describe to us, like, what's that process like, the actual printing process? Like what goes on from start to finish, if you can succinctly describe it, and how many people are on site? Is it the same machine for concrete and glass? And if so, if not, what are the different machines, and how are those processes different?
Okay. Well, I'll first start by saying right now we don't print glass, which would be something that we want to look into, but I know that people have been doing it and it's pretty interesting. But yeah, we have a lot of our hands full with learning the concrete. So like a little bit of the process is we usually have a crew of about 6. Is probably the most minimal crew we can like really run on, maybe 5. But we're basically creating a very large mixture. We have a giant hopper that's mixing all the ingredients that we have in there, which is some Portland cement, baptizer, and a bunch of other little ingredients depending on what the humidity of the environment is, how hot or cold it is that day. And so we're getting all that mixed, and then we're actually filling individual canisters to a certain weight that we have set, or a limit that we have set in our bucket. And then we're actually mixing it in a cement mixer with a certain amount of water that we have predetermined. We have a very set thing that we start at. And as we start printing, we'll make minor adjustments. So as we make that mixture, we'll let it mix, and it dumps into an auger. And then it's a very specially designed machine, because not a lot of people are pumping concrete through hoses unless you're, doing industrial concrete stuff. So we're then, forcing this concrete into a tube. And then that tube is going up the top of our machine and down our hose. And then we have what your traditional 3D style, what today people think of, a box model 3D printer. So our computer then is off in the corner, and it's telling, our X and our Y and our Z axis exactly what patterns and points to move to. And it also can control the rate and flow in which we're pumping. So once we get our concrete and our consistency going, we start pumping. We'll do a little test run, like a skirt, basically. If you're familiar with miniature model printing, you kind of print a barrier around the outside of where you're going to print to make sure that your consistency is good, to make sure that your layers are good. Because if you're putting more pressure, it's going to be pushing the ground more, or the layer below it, and that will fatten it out, fatten the layer, and make it wider. So we're trying to create layer consistency. And then, the process begins. And once we start, there's not, we could do a whole run and we could stop and start again. But stopping as easy as possible to our best benefit, to not create cold joints. So we are working on a system of, a 3-tiered system to create, 2-story buildings. Being able to fix the cold joint problem is nothing compared to like when you stop, and if your machine becomes jogged or off a little bit, resetting that and recalibrating that is very difficult. So especially on a machine that we're able to move and it's very modular, we've spent a lot of time, really honing that in and making sure that our machine operates at its maximum efficiency.
So let's say you, like, after you do like one layer around, because that's how 3D printing works, you do it in layers. Do you have to wait for that to dry before doing the next layer, or by the time you get back around, is it already dry? Or theoretically it's...
Yeah, theoretically, exactly. So when you're working, we've done it where we did blocks, different blocks. We've done whole structure. We let Habitat for Humanity use our structure, and they printed in the office actually in Salt Lake, and they did it as one go. And that's the hardest part, is creating the consistency that is going to be wet enough coming through the tube, but when it makes contact with the ground and the air outside after it's been sitting for that one entire trip, that it's now dry enough to at least hold one more layer. So we've learned that our variable is within like 5 to 8 layers. If you have 5 wet layers where it's like, the air has maybe changed, or the temperature, the way the sun is heating wherever we are has changed, and things are coming out a little too wet. Depending on the size, we've kind of learned like you can get away with 1 wet layer or 5 wet layers, depending on how big the structure is. But there's a limit to where it will collapse, especially when you're doing straight perfect lines. You're much more able to stack higher layers if they're wet. But who wants to just print regular buildings when we have the possibility to create some really beautiful curves and edges and change flux, to make something more artistic and more natural.
Yeah, I'm guessing based off of just my hunch that in more humid environments it would take longer to dry and than it would in more arid climates. And so is that correct, first of all?
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also want to make sure that when you're setting concrete, that your concrete does stay moist while it is, no matter how weird backwards that might sound. You do want it to stay wet while it's drying. You want a certain moisture level to stay there, or else your concrete becomes brittle.
Okay.
We've been pressure testing all of our concrete and all of our solutions that we put through, because they have to reach certain housing regulations. But we've been going above and beyond most of those regulations. But just making sure that we're hitting A through Z and making sure that we're able to create something that's sustainable, cheap and affordable for people, but also has the potential to be really luxurious.
Yeah. And speaking of on the topic of luxuriousness, probably the question you get the most: how much does it cost? What's the cost to build one of these things? And is it a like price per square foot model, or how does the pricing work?
Yeah. Well, that's something that we've been learning as we've been printing structures. We think that we've got it pretty down. So this might change in the future, but we're thinking that we can probably print something around $100 a square foot. So usually average of like lumber and stuff, is averaging 150, 200, depending on what you're doing. But we're thinking to prepare a nice luxurious home, we're thinking we can keep around $100 a square foot. And, eventually in the next year, after we have some of our own little spots out here, and we have all the permits and all that stuff approved, we might start printing some places out here that people can visit, and we'll start, accepting orders. We've got a lot of people asking us now already to print them things, and, we really want to, and we really want to jump on it. But we just want to make sure that what we do is the utmost quality and that it comes professional, and that's going to be something that's really going to change the world. And we just want to be ready for that.
And how long does the concrete last? And is there some type of warranty or something that, that you guys will provide to the end buyer of the products?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that we've been, dealing with, is like learning how to create and make our structures permittable, and also make our structures insurable. So that way your house is insured. We've been jumping through those hoops and learning how to create, so that when we're able to present a house to someone and sell a house to someone, that we will have all of the, moments thought of, and will be covered to make sure that, it protects us, and it also protects everybody that is going to live in one of these beautiful homes.
Right. And how long do you guys expect a home to last?
Oh man. A total concrete home. I mean, it should at least last out without over your lifetime for sure. 100 years, no problem. I've never, been around to stand or see anybody that made aircrete 100 years ago at the moment.
Right.
So, but definitely monolithic stone structures and stuff like that can last thousands of years. So, depending on the quality of our concrete and the environment that it's in, these can be generational homes for sure.
Wow, that's cool. I like that concept of a generational home that is affordable and it was easy to construct, quick to construct. How long does it take to create a home, to 3D print
Yeah,
one?
so we've been estimating that for us to do a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, to print the structure might take us about 2 weeks. And we are on the way of trying to figure out a way to mainstream the entire process, so that way we would be doing all the finishing and detailing stuff inside too. I'll always work with wood, and I think it's a real beautiful thing, especially accenting. So being able to provide the whole experience other than just the shell, is something that we really look forward to, bringing that artistic touch. We're not exactly sure how long it'll take us to completely finish an entire home. But at some point in time this year, out here in Utah, we plan to try to put up 2 of them. So by the end of this year, we should know what the flow is on how to create one full house that is sustainable, permitted, and completely ready. So that way we can continue bringing the service to other people.